Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Randy Swaim joining us here live again on the show, and he's back here with coaching for relevance. Love it. And he's always an amazing person, an amazing soul with a resume beyond belief. And what he's doing now is really to help those really who are career oriented reach that next level, reach that next goal in their life. Even if it is a personal thing, right? Not just people wanting to increase their executiveship or, better in the workplace. It's to be a better person and be better, with who you are. So, Randy, tell us a little bit about your program, what you offer, and then we'll get into today's conversation.
Well, the big thing on it is obviously Coaching for Relevance is the name of my company. I'm a Marshall Goldsmith certified executive coach. And my real focus is on, as you said, bringing freedom to potential in other people. It's not just calling attention that I did this or that. It's just that they gained some insights and they improved themselves and they became something maybe they weren't before, and they're finding a better result, maybe like you said and implied, in their business, in their team, in their organization, or in their family, who knows, kind of thing. So it's really that aspect of bringing freedom to potential. And as I think I shared with you before, with the Hollywood movie that's about to be completed on my life story and everything, one of the things that I closed it up with is this idea that 20 years after I take my last breath, I don't care if people don't remember my name. But what I hope is that there are people that remember that, golly, 20 or 30 years ago, there was this guy and there was this insight, and I brought it to my life, and man, it's made a difference, and that's what I want. I want to just make a difference in up and coming leaders, in people that are training other people or developing other people, and all that, and bringing some concepts and insights in leading your teams that very often people don't think about.
Got it. Well, also, we're opening up the phone lines today. If you want to call in with any questions, 631-307-4010, 631-307-410, if you do want to give us a call. So for today, what did you have in mind for us, Randy?
Well, what I thought I'd do is take just a few minutes and bring out one insight that sometimes can be misinterpreted or sort of understood, if you will, in a lot today. And what I'm going to do, just to make it very simple, is mention this concept that when you think of these two terms, they're not completely separate from each other, but there's some things to think about it. And the two terms that I'm going to kind of address are the concept of diversity and unity. Sometimes it's easy to kind of look at those two concepts as being completely separate and argumentative with each other. Well, they're not. And when you think about it, particularly when you're talking about leading teams in an unpredictable, changing, environment in today's world, one of the things that I kind of talk about when you talk about this aspect of diversity, not everybody on your team has exactly the same background. And what you're going to find is that sometimes if you have somebody that has a little bit of a different history and background, or a little bit of a different vision, what they may have, it should be aligned with your organization, no two ways about it, but they may have some insights when you're running into a tough spot, or when you're running into some clients or some collaborative people that are working with you. They may have some insights that even you, the leader, doesn't have, or the rest of your team doesn't have. And they may have some solutions that you wouldn't have even thought about, possibly. And so it's interesting that when you're talking about this aspect of diversity, that can be a valuable thing when you're talking about trying to really make your team successful and business successful. Now, I will say this, that when you look at that with the concept of unity, are they being unified with where your team wants to go? If somebody's taking that to be the total emphasis of their mindset and not where your team's trying to go, that can be an issue. that is not what you want. But they may bring some value to the team that nobody on your team even saw before, possibly. And because they may have some of those insights. And but are they doing it in a way that is really unified with where your team's trying to go? Are they, bringing some insights? If they're trying to take control and saying that their picture of it is the only thing that's right, guess what? What you're saying is everybody else on your team is dead wrong. And that's not necessarily true. You may have person A, B, and C on your team, and A has this sort of insight from their background or their vision and everything. B has this one, C has this one. And guess what? Are they all applying it in a way that unifies the team and makes the team successful and value with where it's going? And so there's a lot of aspects when you talk about that sort of aspect. The concept of diversity and unity are not one and the same. If you're leading your team in such a way where your definition of unity is everybody does exactly the same thing, period, end of discussion, kind of thing, guess what? In an unpredictable, challenging environment, that's not often successful, because what you're doing is you're saying, I'm the only one that's right, or, kind of, this is the only thing that's right. Well, guess what? That may have to adapt a little bit as you're walking through your strategy. And can you adapt? Sometimes the person that is not exactly the same as everybody else in your team may have an insight of how that adaptation can be incredibly successful. And as a leader, do you really bring that up in your team in a way where the different people bring together their sort of insights? And yeah, there's some degree perhaps where they're sort of diverse in some respects, but are they building it in such a way that brings a real unity to the team? And that's why I say they're not. Sometimes they can be looked at as completely separate and conflicting, but they don't have to be.
I've only heard about that with the Black Lives Matters. It's unity in diversity. And that was talked about a lot and still goes on and on today. And that was the terminology. I remember there was an article about this because obviously it's not just Black matters, lives that matter. It's everyone matters, but it's diversity in unity, or unity in diversity. That's when I was like, what? Okay, I could see what it totally relates. You're right. Is that being inclusive? Is it exclusive? Is it both? So we could say white lives matter. We could say purple lives matter. Black, everyone has the right to say it. But the inclusivity and oh gosh, it does get a little confusing here. So
and it does. It's something that people, can be confused about it. It can be not totally understood. But you're right, exactly that, Jill. But here's what I would say is, as a leader in your team, are you leading it in such a way where people see the value points of it, but also they can all, even the people that are diverse from each other a little bit, can they all see that line that you don't want to cross, because it's going to, destroy the team or make it unsatisfactory or whatever. And so in everything, regardless of which side, if you're talking about that, or if you're talking about any other way of thinking about something that you're trying to accomplish, there's always that line where if you cross that line, all of a sudden your team just collapses in its effort. And you definitely don't want that. So do people have clarity on that? And as a leader, I would say, are you asking the right questions when you're communicating with your team that help people see the value? Because here's the thing, when you come up with a challenging point in your strategic plan, you may find that, your team member A over here is, kind of sees some academic aspects about it, and they kind of come out with what you think is purely academic. But team member B or C over here, has an insight that nobody else would have even thought about.
Wow. And
everybody goes, wow, ooh, yeah. And you know what? When you come up with that, you may have to ask some questions that where are those lines drawn? What should we not cross? What do we have to be on the lookout for? Doesn't mean that it's bad, but that might take you to a satisfactory level that nobody ever imagined. And let's face it, every single person on planet Earth is just a little bit different,
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing. And that means everybody on your team is slightly different, but you know what? They can all bring value in a way that brings diverse thoughts sometimes, but it's not controlling something, and it's not playing control freak games, but it's bringing uh, um, kind of real successful solutions to where your team is in a way that it unifies and makes the team synergistic without trying to pull everybody over into this one kind of direction and everything. And so that's just an interesting point that I was going to bring, that just this aspect of the diversity and the unity, they're not completely separate.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? Are you going to, make it, either one of them can be taken to a negative point, kind of thing. But I do not want to do that. And as a leader, how are you going to lead the success to have the people that maybe have slightly different thoughts about it that could be overwhelmingly successful, kind of thing, and bring that in a way where everybody grows as a team, and they get you to where your team's looking to achieve. And so it's just sort of interesting that when you talk about those two words, it's not like they're in direct conflict of each other all the time. It doesn't mean that they're, fighting each other. But if you understand the truth of it, and also somehow when the limitations have to kind of be there a little bit, how are you going to lead your team in such a way that those people that have dramatic, successful insights
Mm-hmm.
that make the rest of the team go, wow, didn't think of that.
Yeah.
Wow, kind of thing. And when you do that, some dramatic things can happen. And sometimes if you're on a trip for the company and your team, orients that, how are they going to perform, and perhaps bring some of those two aligned in a way where they can be successful, even if you're not immediately there. And so these are just a lot of aspects about this. So I just had the thought on those two words that, they're not in direct conflict with each other, but they can be if people aren't aware of, if they're not bringing the unity and synergy of the team as part of it also, with where the vision you're trying to achieve is. It's two things that a lot of times people kind of separate and consider them as totally separate. Not necessarily.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. By the way, don't forget the lines are open 631-307-4010. And we're here talking to Randy Swaim today. And again, Coaching for Relevance is the website. Let's continue. So, is there more that you want to add to the whole unity and diversity conversation before we move on?
I would say that when you think about the concept of unity and synergy, if all you do is you think of that in terms of a rote academic mindset, you
Mm-hmm.
may not have a picture of it, because people can sort of do the same things without feeling that real degree of synergy in their hearts, inside them, kind of thing. And that's kind of what makes dramatic things really happen. And so even if you're bringing a degree of diversity to it, if I came to you, Jill, and said, you know what, we got to do this because this is this, and you know what, this is what I see, and we got to do this. You better do this. I'm not connecting with you in a synergistic, unified way. But if you can act with somebody in such a way
Mm-hmm.
that you draw a short picture of my thoughts on it,
Yeah.
that makes them go, boy, I hadn't thought about that. That's a good point. And they bring up some questions based on their thinking about what you said that make you go, oh yeah, you know what? That's a
Oh,
good
wow.
point.
Mm-hmm.
And you come together as a team and say, let's apply that, but let's make sure we know
Yeah.
how we're going to apply that. And that's huge. But it is really something that when you look at the concept of diversity versus unity and things of that nature, a lot of people today can get that totally backwards, can can interject those in a way that is very competitive and conflicting when it doesn't have to be. They can be very aligned. But are you, as a leader, are you really bringing that? Are you really allowing some of those conversations sometimes? And are you aware of when it is starting to go off on a tangent, basically, that's not good in either direction, whether it's talking about, well, we can't do that because we're just going to do it this way, da 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 kind of thing. You can be overly crazy with the unity without really looking at how we really develop and experience that unity and synergy, or the other one too. So it is something that a lot of people, when you're talking about leading your teams, to what extent are you doing that? Or to what extent do you need to improve doing that? And what are some of the evidences that you see that make it like, oh my goodness, wow, yeah, I gotta sit down and think about this sometime, kind of thing. But that's true when you're talking about being a leader. That insight and that vision is key. And are you just dragging either of those groups over to one side, or are you really bringing them together in a way that says, yeah, let's make this work? And so it's just it's a key point. And like I say, those are two words that can be kind of completely separate and in people's vision of it and everything, but they don't have to be, because you can still bring different people together in true synergy. And as a leader, to anybody that's listening, to what extent are you truly building that synergy in your team? Because if all you do is shut somebody's talking off, now, if they're playing control freak games in either role, yeah, that can be bad. You need to address that. But if they're just bringing some thoughts and all that, to what extent are you really building that trust and the synergy and the unity in your team? And guess what? If you have, say, 10 people on your team, guess what? Each one's a little bit different. There are times when this person may, see a miraculous solution to it that nobody else did. And there may be times where this person over here does, and stuff like that. So are you really bringing that together when you talk about this aspect of diversity in thinking, diversity in background, diversity in race and something, and all that? Not that should come in as a problem.
We have a call coming in. Hold on one second. Hi, welcome to the show. You are live on the line with our Coaching for Relevance, Randy Swaim, and we are here live. Who's this? Can you hear me?
Yeah, hi. This is Jacob from Minnesota.
Hey, Jacob.
Hi, Jacob.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
Good. Thank you. So get a quiet place.
No problem.
I'm going to create a positive work environment, but I have someone in the office that tends to be very negative all the time. So how can I get around that?
That's a good point. And in some way, that's kind of a dovetail out of kind of what we were talking about today. But if you have somebody that's constantly speaking negative, there's a few senses, a few reasons why they might be. One may be a lot of their background, and they've got something in their journey that's still affecting them mentally when it doesn't need to be. Or it could be they just think that's the way they're supposed to do it and stuff. And the first thing to do as a leader is to have some real conversations with them and get a real sense of what's driving that for them. Because if it turns out to be control freak arrogance, okay, that you need to kind of confront and sort of back that part of it down. But in doing so, you can also do it in a way where, is that because you were disappointed because the team wasn't doing it the way you wanted it to be done or whatever, and have some conversations on that. And if it's so, you can kind of talk with them and let them know, what did you think was right about that? What's the downside of that? What's the risk on that?
Right.
And have some of those conversations. And sometimes if you can do that and you can help them get a sense of, oh, wow, yeah, you know what, I didn't think about that part of it. I see what you mean. and they can adapt how they go about doing it, perhaps. And some of it, like sort of implied there a little bit, some of it, if you get somebody who's just speaking bad about the team, or being negative on everything all the time, some of the thing you got to get in there is say, what's the effect on the team that you're doing this? And we can't do that. So if some issue, and one of the things you can do, one of the questions you can ask on somebody like that, if they come up with if you're very aware of a certain circumstance that caused them to act that way, then what you can do is have a conversation where you talk about that circumstance and you ask them questions like, how are you going to do that differently next time? And what's, and get them thinking about that, because it may be they're just in an old school control freak manager's, mindset, which is not where you really want to be. But when you're talking about being a leader, it's a great question that you asked. And but when you're talking about being a leader, sometimes you got to just have those real conversations, and usually it's not something where you're kind of beating them in the face or anything like that, but just having those very realistic conversations with them. And now, if you have some of those conversations and they still show they don't want to change, they want to play control freak games, then you may have to kind of talk to them and address some stuff. There are some people that sometimes you got to lay them off, kind of thing, if they're not going to be part of your team, because they don't have to think exactly like everybody else. That's that sort of diversity thing, but still doing it in a way that is unified and synergistic with the team. And those, it sounds like, based on what you said, it sounds like those are some of the conversations that need to be had before any real decisions are made up, because it may be that once they gain some insights on that as to how they can interact differently when those things come up, and they do that, all of a sudden, there you go. You got somebody that is actually going to be more positive going forward on your team. And the other part of it is they may have a conversation with somebody about the effective way that you interacted with them, kind of thing. And people go, wow, that's good, kind of thing. And so, but having some of those conversations, I think, are the first point in that. And then if you come up with a point where, this person just should not be here under any circumstances, kind of thing. Okay, there are some times you may have to lay somebody off, but what you want to do is make sure that you're very ethical with how you do that and when you do that.
I got you. Okay.
All right. Thank you for the
All
call.
right.
We
Well,
appreciate it.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. All right. Hold on. We'll see you in a sec. All right. Also, we got someone emailed in, Melissa. How can you manage diversity? Well, we only got 2 minutes for that one.
Well, I'll say it very quickly because it's a good question. But you know what? When you're talking about managing diversity, again, the big thing that I would say on that is what I said in the show here, that being aware of where the line is, where if it crosses that line, our team falls apart, versus are we doing the diversity in such a way where we're not crossing that line? And as a leader, you have to have a degree of clarity on that within your team. Where is it bringing the value? Where is it bringing some unseen possibilities? And when is it actually crossing that line? And that's what I would say is in terms of leading and managing are you aware of when it's crossing a line and putting a negative impact on your company and on your organization? And, sometimes having a conversation with them where, we're a team. Each of us brings different skills. Each of us brings different visions and awareness. Here's the vision where we're going as a team. How does that click in a positive way? And getting people to get a sense of what that really looks like. And for you, being aware of when it is actually crossing a line as opposed to just something rote academic. And that's the first insight for 2 minutes that I would share with her. A good question.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being here, for joining us. Please remind us how we can reach you.
Okay, it's Randy Swaim. You can see back here my website is coachingforrelevance.com. It's coaching for relevance.com, and you can go on there, and on the website, on the homepage at the bottom, there's my cell phone and my email. And if somebody wants to reach out and have a conversation, we can do that. As I've shared with you, Jill, before, I don't make big sales calls. I mean, it turns out that you have a need, yeah, we'll come up with something and we'll do it. But if somebody just wants to have a conversation, feel free.
Thank you. We appreciate it. And by the way, how was your Thanksgiving? I didn't get to ask.
It was very uneventful, and it was needed this year. It was
Aw.
very good and very peaceful. And
Oh.
so got a chance to talk with and communicate with my great grandkids, and that was kind of awesome.
Oh, awesome.
yeah,
Well,
it was
thank
good.
you. Good. Pleasure to have you back. Always good to see you. And thank you for our callers, our people inquiring today. And we'll talk soon. Have a good day.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.